Hey guys! So, happy Sunday. I have been posting a lot of opportunities for you guys to ask me direct questions lately in hopes of doing a live Q&A. So, here we are. But I've also been getting a lot of questions in my DMs from you guys. And a lot of the same questions are coming up. So that's why I wanted to share this. And it's kind of cool because in the past when I've done this, I actually usually end up DMing answers individually just because there isn't a lot of feedback. But this time there's been a lot of feedback, which is really cool. So I don't know if y'all are just like starting to trust me since I've been out here for like 4 or 5 years now. I mean, but it's pretty cool. So I'm happy to share. So we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things. Like I said, there has been a lot of questions, so I kind of cut the list in half, and I'll share the rest of the questions at a later time. But today we're going to be covering just a little bit on tracking macros, nutrition planning, being your own hype girl, because that's something I talk a lot about, and I want to try to like get you guys to understand that a little bit more and how you can implement this into your training routine. And also what it means by lifting heavy, what people mean by saying that, and what that means for you, and choosing Team Pro Physique. Those are the topics that we're going to be covering. Those are the questions you guys have been asking me. So I'm kind of just going to go off the cuff here and freeform these answers and hopefully give you guys a better answer or better understanding of each of these topics. And if you guys still have questions on anything that I talk about, please feel free to DM me individually. Share a comment on this post. I'll be sharing it to my timeline so you guys can watch it at any time if this is one of your questions or something that you've struggled with personally. So just kind of diving right into this. Tracking macros and nutrition planning. So I think a lot of times people get really wrapped up and confused by what the fuck people actually mean by tracking macros. What is a macro? There's actually a really lot of great resources and podcasts about macros, specifically from my team, actually. Podcasts that my coach and coaches on my team have put out, Team Pro Physique. I can link that in this video as well for you guys to check out that podcast if you're not already following it, because it really just gives you a beginner's guide to tracking macros. But my take on it, what I want to share with you is macros, do not overcomplicate them. Macros, what that means is macronutrients. Your macronutrients, you've got micronutrients, you've got vitamins and minerals. That's basically what your diet is composed of. So when you say you're tracking macros, tracking macronutrients, the macronutrients are proteins, carbs, and fats. Macro meaning most, biggest, right? Those are what largely compose our diet, proteins, carbs, and fats. So if somebody says they are tracking macros, all that means is that they are keeping track of their proteins, carbs, and fats, okay? We're not going to get into any sort of individualized planning and how to calculate your macros and all that stuff. I'm just going to try to explain to you guys a little bit on what tracking macros really means. So, if we know that macros means macronutrients are proteins, carbs, and our fats, how do we go about tracking them? Okay, so you pretty much, in a nutshell, are going to download an app. Okay. Personally, I use MyFitnessPal. I know there are others out there. You could probably Google them to find some of them, but I think that MyFitnessPal is super easy to follow. So you've got your MyFitnessPal app, and you're going to start logging your food. So everything and anything you eat, you are going to log it into this app. I know it sounds a little bit mundane or tedious to some people, but especially if you're starting at ground zero and you know that you need to make a change in your life, you want to start living healthier, you want to start making better choices, but you just don't know where to start, that is where you start. Download MyFitnessPal and start logging everything you eat in a day. Don't change anything, but just start logging your stuff to figure out where you're at, where you are currently at. Then you can look back after tracking for a week. You can look at the things that you've logged and said, this is about my daily calorie intake. This is where I'm sitting with my proteins and my carbs and my fats currently without changing anything. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a baseline to understand what it is you're eating on a weekly basis. So you download the app, you start tracking your food, and you can literally see from the MyFitnessPal app what your proteins, your carbs, and your fats are. Like I said, on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, okay? So when somebody says tracking macros, that's really what they're referring to, is keeping track of their proteins, carbs, and fats. So as you've been tracking your food throughout the week, right? What it would mean to specifically be tracking your macros is if you had a goal for yourself on your proteins, carbs, and fats that you would be hitting or trying to hit on a daily basis. And you're tracking your nutritional intake to try to hit those numbers. Does that make sense? So that's basically what tracking macros is. Similar to if somebody's tracking calories, they're logging their food intake and seeing how much calories they're eating in a day. If you're tracking your macros, you're tracking and logging your nutritional intake and seeing where your proteins, carbs, and fats are ending up in the day. Now, if you're trying to meet that goal, like I was talking about, if you have a specific amount of proteins, carbs, or fats that you're trying to meet a certain goal for, you're likely manipulating your nutrition in order to hit those goals, okay? So that's just a little bit on getting started with tracking. And so if you're a beginner to, making healthy changes in your life, you've downloaded the app, you've been tracking for the week, you kind of see where things are at. But I don't want you to get over confused, too complicated with oh my God, do I have to go out and buy a food scale? And what the fuck is this? It's asking me how much of this chicken I had. How do I know? Okay, simple thing to do without buying a food scale. Okay, if you're a beginner and this is day one, I want to try to make healthy changes here. Or even if it's not day one, but you just don't really have that deep of a nutrition education or knowledge for yourself. Something that you can start doing is tracking your portions, because MyFitnessPal not only allows you to track the grams if you had a food scale, but it also allows you to track in cups, tablespoons, half a cup, those sorts of things. So my advice to you, if you are somebody that doesn't necessarily want to go out and buy a food scale and start weighing your food all of the time, using portions in MyFitnessPal can be a really good place to start too. So if you're, let's say, gonna sit down to have some dinner, and I'm just going to use something super, super generic, okay? You're going to have some chicken, you're going to have potatoes, and you're going to have some asparagus or broccoli, okay? So you've got your chicken, you don't want to weigh it out, you don't want to weigh your potatoes out, and you don't want to weigh your vegetables out, okay? So use portions, all right? So you're going to use a chicken breast the size of your palm, okay? You can rough estimate that that's about 3.5 or 4 ounces, okay? And then with your potatoes, you can use a measuring cup. Scoop out half a cup of potatoes, put it on your plate. With the asparagus and broccoli, scoop out a cup or however it is much that you wanted. Put that on your plate. If you're going to use some butter on those potatoes, take your teaspoon and see how many teaspoons of butter you would normally put on your potatoes, okay? And so kind of using a portion system and logging that in your MyFitnessPal, that can help you to meet your macros or track your macros, at least a little bit of a rough estimate without necessarily going out and buying a food scale. Now, that being said, everything you're putting into that log should be everything that goes in your mouth. Okay, so what that means is don't be saying you had 1 tablespoon of peanut butter if you measured 1 tablespoon of peanut butter and took 2 more spoonfuls off the spoon, okay? You have to log what you're actually eating and don't manipulate it to what you think you want to see or what makes things look good or whatever. No, you literally you have to be upfront, honest with yourself, and put everything down that you're putting in your mouth. So that's kind of what I wanted to say in regards to tracking macros. Hopefully that helps somebody who's maybe been confused about what that means, what tracking macros mean, what macros are, and how you can maybe start doing that for yourself. So along that topic of planning, nutrition planning. So when you've got your basic nutrient, what I call a nutrition prescription, when you've got your basic macro breakdown of your proteins, your carbs, and your fats, a really simple way to plan out your nutrition for your day would be to think to yourself how many meals you're going to have in the day, whether it's you're just going to have the standard breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or if you're going to have breakfast, lunch, a snack, and then dinner, or what I usually do a breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner, and dessert. Not just because my macros are very high right now, but also just because that helps keep me, I get hungry every couple of hours, and if I have the opportunity to eat, I'm going to take it. And then also in the sense that I love dessert. If I say that I'm not going to have dessert after dinner, I know I'm just lying to myself. So I make sure that I plan it out every single day. So let's say you're going to plan for 4 meals in your day. you take your nutrition prescription, okay, or your total macros that you're trying to reach, and you divide those numbers by the number of meals that you're having in the day. That gives you a good rough estimate of where you should be, like what foods you should try to put into your meals so that you can meet those goals. So let's say, for example, you've got 4 meals in the day and your fat goals are, well, let's just do something easy, like 40, okay? You have 40 grams of fat in the day that you need to hit your macros. You're gonna have 4 meals today. 40 divided by 4 meals is 10. You know in your head then that each meal should contain about 10 grams of fat in order for you to hit those goals. And you can easily plug this into MyFitnessPal, planning in advance, seeing how your day works out. And you know, if let's say for your snack, you don't necessarily want 10 grams of fat, but you wanted more fats in your lunch, you can manipulate things a little bit. So it really gives you a little bit of freedom with that. So take whatever your goal macro is, so like whatever you're supposed to be hitting for your carbs, whatever you're supposed to be hitting for your fats or your proteins, try to divide that by the number of meals that you're having in the day, and then just kind of play with things from there if you need to, in order to meet your needs, in order to create meals that fit your lifestyle and your likes and dislikes. Lastly, on the topic of nutrition planning, with that, with the incorporation of the macro tracking, think of things like this really helps you to think of your foods in terms of its nutrition component. So I've been doing this for quite a while, and I tend to think of foods in groups of the macro that they're associated with. So like if I'm going to sit down for dinner and I know I need some more carbs and I need some more fats in my day, something like that, okay? I start going through in my head what sources of carbs, like what do I have that are sources of carbs? Like potatoes, rice, rice cakes, strawberries, raspberries, bananas. Those things are very basic forms of a carbohydrate with your fats, okay? Peanut butter, avocado, maybe some oil or something like that. So like, let's say, for example, it's the end of the day and I've got some extra carbs and fats that I need to meet. I'm doing this in my head. I'm thinking through what are the basic forms of this macronutrient that I can add into my day to meet this need. If I've got a bunch of carbs left and some fats, all right, I'll have a rice cake with peanut butter, and to meet the fat part, I'll add however much of the peanut butter that I need. You know what I mean? Like I'll add bananas to it, whatever it is that I need to do to add those carbs and fats in, or proteins. It really just creates a simplistic way of thinking, because it takes the guesswork out of creating your meals. Every single meal you could sit down and say, okay, I'm going to fill this with a protein, a carb, and a fat. What are the proteins, carbs, and fats that I like? What are the proteins, carbs, and fats that I could piece together that makes sense in this meal? Does that make sense? Maybe I could share a little bit more on that a different time, but that's kind of just like grazing the surface, hopefully giving you guys a better understanding about what tracking macros is, how you can better plan your nutrition, and incorporate the two together to make meals that make sense, instead of just, you know, sitting down to have dinner, eating a chicken breast and broccoli, and then, oh, you need some more fats, so you eat some coconut flakes, and that's like, coconut flakes don't go with this meal. Why am I doing this? So does that make sense? I hope that made sense a little bit. Like I said, I can talk about that in more detail if you guys want at another time. But next topic. So the next thing I'm going to talk about, I guess, is going to be lifting heavy. What does it mean to lift heavy? And I know I talk about this quite often. Is one of the things that I changed in regards to really changing my physique is lifting heavy, lifting heavier weights consistently. But I think this is something that gets confused and misconstrued, and I see questions about this a lot. So I wanted to address this. So lifting heavy is not the same for me as it is for you, is for your neighbor, is for your dad, or is for your cousin. Lifting heavy is literally on an individual basis, because what's heavy to me might not be heavy to you, especially if you are starting. I remember when I first started working out, heavy to me on bicep curls was like 5 pounds. I thought I was gonna die after like 15 freaking reps of a 5-pound dumbbell. And that's just the God's honest truth. So when we say lifting heavy, it can often get miscommunicated is that you need to lift these fucking 65-pound weights, right out the gate, and that's not true. So I want to just kind of like myth bust that for you guys for a second. So when people are talking about lifting heavy, in a nutshell, what we're referring to is you need to start challenging yourself. You need to start doing your workouts and absolutely challenging yourself so that you're not finishing after half an hour and being like, okay, that was tough, but not even really meaning it. Or, so one of the ways to gauge that is you're doing your reps. Let's say you've got a set of bicep curls. You're supposed to do 10 reps for 3 sets. Okay. So when you get to rep 10, and that's it, and then you wait, all right, a minute's gone by, I can go again, 10 reps. And you stop, a minute, nah, I don't want to wait that long, 30 seconds will be good. And you go again, and you are not running out of gas. It's not difficult for you at all to reach that 10 reps, okay? What you're looking for, to know that you're lifting heavy, is by that 8th rep, you're struggling. You're like, I'm not gonna I don't want to imitate that for you anymore. But your 8th rep, you're really starting to struggle. And when you get to 10, you're fatigued. You're not totally gassed. You're not like, oh my God, I can't even do another set. But, you were challenged by those 10 reps, okay? And then you give yourself, probably 2 minutes minimum, and then you go again, okay? You finish the amount of sets that you're going for, but you are challenged, okay? So like I said, if you're getting to whatever the amount of reps that you were supposed to do and you're not feeling fatigued from that, you need to increase the weight. That is a very good indicator that it's time to increase your weights in your sets. So just kind of going back to the initial statement that I made on lifting heavy, this is different for everybody. Every single person is going to think that something heavy is different for them, depending on where they're starting, where they've been, their history, all the things, their knowledge of exercise science. So just kind of getting a good baseline of the exercises that you're performing will help you to then lift heavier. And that being said, also tracking your weights can help you to lift heavy because you know what you did last time you did that session. And if you do it again and it's easy, your muscles are growing and they're strengthening, increase the weight. You're consistently doing that. So over time, this really builds up. It builds your strength. And you know what? Before you know it, you were tired from 5-pound dumbbells for the bicep curls, and now you're doing freaking 25, 27 pounds, okay? So that's not gonna happen overnight, but it does happen over time. Mind you, time could be an extended period of time, but just keep working at it. Keep pushing yourself every single day. Keep tracking your weights, and it will come. And before you know it, like I said, your used to be heavy will then be your freaking warm up, and that's really cool. So I just wanted to elaborate on that a little bit. And then the last 2 topics I wanted to cover, I'm gonna try to keep it a little short. I'll probably end up squeezing maybe some of the rest of this into the next video that I share with you guys. But I guess I'll cover being your own hype girl, because this one I think is really important. So when I talk about being your own hype girl and how this can impact your workouts and impact your day-to-day life, when you are in your workouts, I get a lot of questions about like staying motivated and all these things. Like, this is where being your hype girl comes in. Okay, because if you're somebody that doesn't really feel that confident right now, probably being your own hype girl is like the last thing on your list of, things that you even know how to do or things that come into your mind as being important. But I'm telling you right now, they are absolutely motherfucking important. So when you walk into that gym and you maybe don't feel confident that day or maybe ever, okay? But you need to, in your head, be speaking to yourself like you are the motherfucking boss. You are the queen. You're the bitch. You're this bad bitch that's gonna step into that weight rack, pick up them weights, and lift some heavy shit, and let's fucking go. This is stuff that you're going through in your head the entire time that you are lifting. Now that sounds like crazy, right? But I'm not kidding you. The more you do this, the more it ingrains in your head that what you're saying is true, and it builds confidence on its own, and it's freaking awesome. And this will also help you to lift those heavy weights because you are being your own hype girl in your own head and being your own coach basically in that moment. Because regardless of whether you have a coach or not, your coach isn't always going to be there, or a trainer. Your trainer isn't always going to be there, but you will always be in your own head. This is you for you. It's your life, your goals. Don't let anybody tell you what you can or can't do. So when you're in your own head and you're hyping yourself the fuck up, you've got your tracked weights. You know what you did last week. You know how you're feeling today. You know you're going to level up. Or maybe you don't know it, but you're telling yourself you're going to. You are every single every single exercise. You know what you did last week, so what are you gonna do this week? You're telling yourself in your head, all right, bitch, let's go. You did 25s last week, let's do 25s this week. Or if it's time for you to level up, okay, 25s last week, let's push for 30s this week. Come on, you go. Let's go. Let's go. You got this. No backing down. Pushing 35s today. Let's go. Like, just think about things that maybe a soccer coach has said to you in the past, or if you did basketball or track, or, you know, maybe if you didn't play sports, but what would you say to maybe your best friend or somebody that you love if you're trying to encourage them? What would you say if, let's say, your son was running a race, that he's doing a sport that he loves? How would you sit there on the sidelines and hype him up? Hype yourself up that same way. And I'm not kidding you, this is going to transform the way that you work out. Hands down. It will push you to not only push the weights, you know, it will absolutely push you to progress in your weights and in your training, but it'll also transform the way that you feel about yourself. It helps to transform your confidence. And I'm not even kidding you guys. Like, the clients that I have coached in the past that choose weightlifting programs as opposed to, you know, like the more feminine based, like aerobics, or like programs that involve a lot of HIIT cardio and stuff like that. The clients that I've had that incorporate lifting weights, like specifically lifting heavy weights, I have seen their confidence skyrocket out the gate so much faster than the clients that chose the more feminine programs, okay? Like, that speaks for itself. And I just think that adding the hype girl component into that, in your own head, every single day, pushing yourself, like, that's something that can't be beat. That's something that nobody can take from you. And it's awesome, because the second you're in the zone and maybe a negative thought floats into your mind, because I'm telling you, it will, there are plenty of times where I catch myself at a bad angle at the gym, or whatever you want to call it, like, and I literally, like, I'll start being like a negative Nancy or beating myself up in my head. And when that happens, I'm just like, no, shut that shit down. Like, and I think about my goals. I think about, nope, like, you're like, for example, currently, I'm like, nope, like, we are building a physique for next season. Like, I don't fucking care what you think about yourself right now. You are here for a reason. Like, let's fucking go. Like, I just, like, it, like, I don't even know how else to describe it. Like, over time, the repetitive nature of being your own hype girl in your head is going to kick your mean girl out of your head anytime she pops up. And that's something that's really freaking cool, and something that honestly can, like, be to your benefit even outside of the gym. But I just wanted to share it in specifically in regards to the gym, because that's where I use this hype girl mentality a lot in my day-to-day life. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. I hope that gave a little bit more of a perspective on how to be your own hype girl. And just maybe some things that you could start saying to yourself, or, you know, when you feel like you're feeling down on yourself, things that you maybe can say instead. Or, you know, you catch yourself in that bad lighting and you're like, nope, bitch, I'm a fucking boss. I'm about to lift some heavy ass motherfucking weights because I'm a motherfucking boss. I'm a queen. I'm here to rock shit. Like, you know, like, I'm here to fuck shit up. Like, whatever it is that you need to say, you know, that's kind of how you do it. So I know that I'm kind of running low on time here, so I just kind of wanted to touch really quickly on choosing Team Pro Physique, because that was one of the topics that I said I was going to talk about in this video. I dove a little bit more into the other topics than I planned, I guess. Sometimes I just talk a lot. I got a lot to say, you know. But I guess just, like, really quickly what I wanted to say about choosing Team Pro Physique for me specifically, and I could talk about this another time because it's got a lot of different components, but aside from how I found Team Pro Physique, why I stuck with Team Pro Physique. That's really, I think, what makes the most difference to me to share. And it was because I formed a relationship of trust with my coach. And I think that trusting your coach is hands down one of the most important things that you can do in seeking a coach, or in engaging with a coach. And I don't mean that to say, you know, just, oh, trust whatever your coach says. Go blindly into the wind and just, sign up with a coach and trust everything they say. No. The way trust is built is, yes, initially upon that sign up, you should have that mutual relationship of trust, having in your mind, like, that I trust this person. I'm going to trust this person with my planning moving forward. However, trust but verify. That's something that a surgeon told me, like, actually a few weeks ago, and I really love that saying. So trust but verify. What I mean by that in regards to coaching is your coach is going to give you your plans and tell you what to do on a weekly basis. But if there are things that you don't understand, or, things that maybe aren't making sense to you, things that just aren't clicking, things that maybe you're questioning, like, okay, my coach is telling me this, but I've seen online that these people do that, or this girl that I know is really successful did this. Why is my coach telling me this? When those things happen, ask. Ask your coach. And if they're a good, trustworthy coach, they will have an answer for you. They will have some evidence-based response that they can give you. Not something that they're reading out of a textbook. I mean, yeah, textbooks are great, but an answer that actually, like, makes sense, and they will give you the time of day to explain it to you. And I think that's very important, because a coach that you ask questions to and just responds with, oh, just trust me. Oh, just trust me. No, me asking you a question and you explaining it to me will help me to trust you, okay? So, like, that is something that I think is very important in regards to the client-coach relationship. So in my sense of working with T Pro Physique and working with my coach, every single time my coach has given me plans that I maybe don't understand, or are difficult for me to follow, or are contradictory to maybe what I have seen out there in the media or other people doing, I ask. Honestly, even contradictory to some things that I've learned in school. Like, I went to school, like, my bachelor's degree is in nutrition, and some things that I have done for this sport have been contradictory to, like, basic principles that I was taught in school. So that's very interesting. So I'm always making sure to ask my coach when these situations come about. And she always gives me an evidence-based response. She always is more than willing to look into things for me. If she maybe doesn't understand a question that I've got or something like that. And that in itself has helped me to build trust with my coach over time. So I wanted to share that piece of sticking with Team Pro Physique and why I do trust them, and why things I think have worked out so well with my coach. Because if you can't, just like in any relationship, if you don't have trust, what do you have? And I think that is very important. So that's just kind of like my piece on sticking with Team Pro Physique, why I think that things have been so beneficial to me with working with my coach. And I know that all the coaches on this team are very evidence-based as well, and do form very trustworthy relationships with their clients in that same basis. So that's what I had to say about that. And yeah, so to wrap things up, I hope you guys learned something from everything that I've shared, or took some sort of nugget of information from the things that I shared with you guys about tracking macros, what macros are, planning your nutrition, making simple tweaks to your diet in order to think about how you're going to create meals that make sense for you, what we actually mean by lifting heavy, and how you can start lifting heavier, and being your own hype girl in the gym in order to advance in your weights and advance, in your confidence, not only in your confidence in the gym, but in your everyday life. So I think that these are very important topics, and I love that you guys have been asking me these questions. So like I said, I hope I have helped in some way. If you still have any questions about anything I talked about, or maybe want to know a little bit more about what I shared today, feel free to drop it in a comment below or shoot me a message, because each of these topics, as you can tell, I have so much to say about, and I could probably make a separate video for every single one of them. So I'll be sharing a separate segment maybe in a few days, a few weeks, I don't know, whenever I really have the availability, but kind of addressing the other half of questions that you guys have been asking me, because I want to get those answers out there to you guys too. So like I said, shoot me more questions if you've got them. Share your responses or your feedback with me below. I hope I helped. And yeah, I'm just excited to share more stuff like this with you guys. And let's have an awesome week. XOXO.